man, I got the front row seat for this one.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tony. For those of you that do, well, I apologize. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for everyone who graciously accepted the invitation for being here today. I know some of you came from a far distance and some of us from not so far. But I wanted to thank you for helping Jimmy and Sarah celebrate this day.
Woo.
Now, a few weeks ago, I received a phone call from Jimmy, awkwardly asking me for a favor. And then he went off on to a whole nother topic, in which I had to interrupt him and ask him, what was the favor you called for? With Sarah giggling in the background, Jimmy foolishly asked the great honor of me speaking on this very special day. Let me just say how grateful and honored I was to have been chosen to speak at such a joyous occasion, the wedding of Jimmy and Sarah. Unfortunately, those feelings have now passed, and I stand before you nervous and terrified. So, with that being said, I would like to ask both Jimmy and Sarah to take part in my speech. Sarah, if you can put your hand on the table. And Jimmy, will you please put your hand on top of Sarah's?
Hey-o.
And I would like for both of you to keep your hands in this position until the end of my speech. And believe me, Jimmy, you'll regret it if you don't.
Crank it off. Make it quick, I want to drink.
Now, I'm not going to get into the typical wedding speech with a bunch of poems or quotes, but I want to share a short story. One night at the Cherry Lounge, one drunken night at the Cherry Lounge.
No.
Sarah there with her girlfriends, and Jimmy and I there with Jim Bloomquist. I decided to go out and have a drink, get some fresh air. On my way to the door, I was stopped by Sarah. And she says, Tony, I have to tell you something, but you have to promise not to tell anyone. Before I could promise, Sarah was confessing her crush and the fact that she was in like with Jimmy.
And likes.
At that moment, Jimmy comes up from behind me, places his hand on my shoulder, and says, I thought you were going outside. I said, I am, let's go. And with the same shoulder that he touched, I looked back and said, Jimmy, you're not going to believe what Sarah just told me. Sarah, with Jimmy, you have found a man who will treat you right and always be by your side. A man who will comfort you in times of need. Honest, caring. But Jimmy, you're really the lucky one today because you married Sarah. Sarah is beautiful, smart, funny, loving, and a very caring woman. She really deserves a great husband. And thank God she married you before she found him. I found the important task of speaking at a wedding is knowing when enough is enough. And I think that time has arrived. As I look down at some of you with your heads and your hands, wondering what I've done to this speech. Again, it's been an honor and a privilege to have spoken today. Thanks again, and I will think that you would all agree that Jimmy is not only the groom, but also the best man. And apart from Sarah being the most stunning person in the room, she is also the luckiest. Now, in any case you're wondering why I asked Jimmy to place his hands on top of Sarah's, I will now tell you. Jimmy, as my final role, it has been with great pleasure that I've been able to give you at least a few minutes in which you have the upper hand on Sarah.
Cheers.
Bam. Cheers, baby. Ding, 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 ding.
Thank you.
Ah, now you guys got to make out every time you hear that. Kind of a rule. Kind of a wedding rule. Bing, 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 bing.
Kiss, kiss.
Ah, woo!